Okay, hey y'all, here we are again. Harry is now in the habit of stealing my chair, just like Lucky used to do. Pretty much as soon as I get up to go do a thing like set up the camera, Harry's got to be all up in my chair. Ooh. Oh, there you go, buddy. All right. Hey there. Sooner or later, eventually, I need to figure out. I think I even have it. There's supposed to be a way to do a remote control so that I can already be in the chair, just hit the button from somewhere else. I'll figure this out eventually. Okay, the basic idea here is quite some time ago, I started to try and do like an alternative Zombicide series in which like I wanted it to be a series of Zombicide games, kind of like the Zombicide campaigns that already exist, but I wanted it to be more of a like narrative experience where we sort of delve into the characters and what they're really thinking and feeling, and so more like a novel that you play with dice, I guess, right? Yes, Harry. I and as I started to think more and more about it, it's something that I still want to do, but after trying it, it was hard, especially since when I first tried it, I was just sort of like, yeah, I can just do this off the cuff. I'll just come up with a basic idea, have these characters, flesh them out a little bit, write some bios or something, and then I'll just play the game and just no, like it's if it needs to be a story, then I should write some of the most important parts first. Is what somebody put in the comments, and they were right. Like you can't write a novel in your head like while you're playing a board game. That's just silly. So anyway, also I guess I'm making this now because I was messing around on my phone yesterday, and I got an email from YouTube. It was either an email from YouTube or I was looking at my channel. Apparently, the most watched video on my channel so far is really a short that I titled "New Zombicide Story Game," and as I looked at it critically, I thought, okay, uh, is this high number really from me, or is it from Zombicide? Is it from people clicking on it assuming that like I am showcasing a new campaign that Zombicide just released or something like that, or a new product from Zombicide, when that's not really what this is. That's not what this is. This is me just fucking around trying to write stories and play the game in a little. It's very homebrew type stuff, right? Anyway, all that out of the way, I thought to myself, okay, so there seems to be some interest here. At least some of it might be like just a Zombicide story game, a story game where you're. Anyway, so I did write some things for this. I wrote some stuff that could eventually become like the first episode of this Zombicide story game that I initially titled "Playing with Fire." I played through most of the first scenario. I have most of the big moments, as I like to call them, written out here, and I thought I might read a few of them today, just to record it and for posterity's sake, to let people know I'm still working on this. I still have this in mind. I still want to do this thing. And I also keep saying I want to tell stories on this channel, so here it is. Here's some stories that I'm going to tell that I wrote. I wrote this. It's not ChatGPT. I wrote this on the bus, no less, on the way to work. Yeah, so we're going to focus on two of what I would consider to be the main characters to start with. at least anyway, in my mind. Phil, we're going to start with Phil. This is a memory that he has, and it's a memory that he will have when he steps into like this ruined bodega in the first sort of session. So it's called Phil's Bodega Memory. When Phil moves on the store zone is the note that I put in there. So let's read the actual story here. Phil stepped cautiously into the ruined bodega store. His shotgun was up and ready. Light was streaming through cracks in the ceilings and windows, there's not multiple ceilings, and windows, so he might actually be able to hit something if it moved. Suddenly, he was jerked backwards through time in his consciousness. He was still a rookie back then. The first time he shot a man, that was. Phil had been a killer long before any of this madness had ever started. He had only been a cop for a few months. His sergeant was on patrol with him that day and was showing him the ropes. They got a call about a man outside a bodega downtown. The store owner had put in a complaint. Some thug is selling loose cigarettes right in front of the store, his sergeant said casually. He wants him gone, he muttered flatly. Well, the store owner wants him gone. So they cruised over there in their patrol car and parked in front. A black man in dreadlocks and dirty, tattered clothing was leaning against the wall. Do you have a permit to be selling here, sir? His sergeant said. I ain't even doing anything wrong, officer. Just enjoying my day, the man replied with some annoyance. You're selling loose cigarettes here, aren't you? His sergeant responded tersely as he stepped closer to the man. So what if I am? Ain't this a free country? The tattered man spat back at his sergeant. Things were starting to get confrontational, and it made Phil just a little bit nervous. Sir, I'm going to need to see some ID and a permit, otherwise I'll have to search you for contraband, his sergeant stated routinely as his hand rested casually on his gun. I got rights, you pig, the man shouted angrily. His sergeant continued to drift ever closer to the man. Before Phil even knew what was happening, the tattered man had decked his sergeant, knocked him out nice and clean. Then he burst into the bodega and was darting towards the rear entrance. Phil drew his service weapon quickly and shouted, Freeze, asshole! But the man kept running towards the exit anyway. Phil aimed and hit the man in the back. He sprawled on the floor, knocking over a display stand as he hurtled forwards. A pool of blood began to spread amidst the clutter. The man was dead. Phil had shot him right through the heart. Phil just stood there staring at the dead man for a moment or two. His gun was in his slightly trembling hand. You did good, kid, his sergeant said behind him. But he's dead, Phil muttered in shock. Yeah. And he also hit an officer, so no one will care. Plus, he was just some scumbag wino. All we need to do now is write up the report properly. You'll be fine, kid. But Phil couldn't help but wonder. He had just murdered a man over some loose cigarettes. Was that fine? So yeah, that's Phil's story. And friends of the channel, people who've been watching me for a while, y'all know my goal here is to try and weave, my political bias into stories and games and whatnot to try and, impart lessons and whatnot. So obviously this story is, since Phil is a cop and I am basically an anarchist, I don't like cops, and, we're going to talk about police violence and not just the violence that police do. We're going to frame it in terms of systemic racism, basically. Now, obviously, in this story, we did not hear any racial epithets per se. We did not delve deeply into precisely why racism has a factor here. And yet, we hear hints of it, perhaps, in like the dismissive tone of Phil Sargent, or just the fact that they're there at all to shoot this man over As Phil ponders, well, he was just selling some loose cigarettes. Why did I have to kill him over that? That's a great question, right? So anyway, Phil is, I think, going to be one of the main characters. But the other main character is going to be Amy. And where is her memory? Okay, here we go. I'm thinking main characters because, like, I'm thinking they're going to be like the polar opposites, right? Like Phil is a cop. It's not just that he was a cop, but I noticed that like his cop persona like didn't somehow go away once the world ended. Like he still has his uniform on. He's still doing the Rick thing, but like he keeps doing the Rick thing for a very long time, as far as I can tell. So that's weird. Amy, even before the world ended, was like the polar opposite, right? Like she's totally like this anti-capitalist goth, edgy type person. And anyway, so Amy, we're going to read her story, and yeah, my idea kind of was like to write these in such a way that I would read them at certain points in the game. They would be like conditional, right? Because since it's a game and I don't know exactly what's going to happen, maybe some of these characters like get downed throughout the course of the mission, and then it wouldn't make sense to read their memories, and I might have to like alter the story a bit, perhaps. But for the most part, that was the idea. So here's Amy's memory. Amy remembers her sensei as she wields a new epic katana. So there was the condition. I was gonna like make it so that she picks up an epic katana from like one of the loot boxes, and then she would remember this thing that happened to her. So it goes. It was a masterfully crafted blade. Amy felt as if it were a natural extension of her hand as she drew it from the sheath. As she marveled at its beauty, she couldn't help but remember that terrible day the world had ended. It seemed like so long ago now. She had been admiring a similar blade in her old kendo dojo. Class had just ended not too long ago, and Sensei had gone back to his bedroom to check on his sick wife. She had fallen ill recently, and he was worried about her. Everyone else had left for the day, but Amy remained. Amy was Sensei's lead student, and she had volunteered to help teach the newer students. She had questions about next week's lesson plan, so she sat on the bamboo flooring as she pondered what sort of forms the junior students should focus on next. Her musings ended abruptly when she heard Sensei scream from his living area behind the dojo. "Sensei, is everything all right?" Amy blurted out in distress. It was a silly question. Something was obviously wrong. Besides the scream she had heard, crashing furniture and other signs of a desperate struggle from beyond the dojo's thin walls. The struggle didn't last long, and an eerie silence followed. Amy was suddenly racked with indecision. Clearly she should do something, but she was uncomfortable with entering Sensei's home uninvited. "Sensei? Can you hear me?" Amy shouted in desperation. She was standing now fully alert. The future lessons were completely forgotten. She eyed the ancestral blade sitting upon the ceremonial dojo pedestal. Grabbing the ancient katana briefly crossed her mind, but it was unthinkable to touch such a priceless heirloom. Then the moaning began. It was faint at first, but it soon got louder. The sound of awkwardly shuffling feet was soon added to the unsettling moans. Amy's discomfort dissipated, and she quickly unsheathed Sensei's ancient blade. She assumed a combat stance and shouted, "Who goes there? Announce yourself!" She could soon see human-shaped shadows from beyond the paper screen door leading to Sensei's home. Suddenly, the shapes burst through the door. Amy gazed in abject terror. It was Sensei and his wife, but they were both moving so very unnaturally. Sensei's neck had been ripped open, and they were both covered in his blood. They moaned loudly as their vacant eyes met hers. They lunged at her aggressively, and Amy dodged as she withdrew. "Sensei? What the hell is wrong with you?" Amy screamed in confused horror. The blood-soaked pair continued to stumble towards her. She knew what she must do. Her motions were quick and graceful as her training took over. She jabbed at both of the moaning heads, almost without thought. This threat must be neutralized. Now. Her targets crumpled lifelessly to the floor as their blood dripped from the katana. Before Amy could even collect her thoughts, she heard sirens and gunshots from outside. She was suddenly engulfed in screams and chaos. She grabbed her gym bag and left with sword in hand. The world was never the same again. Okay. Yeah, I thought I read a lot of other stuff. Tried putting in some like memories to sort of help flesh out the characters and establish like who they are, where they came from. Like we noticed that Phil has a memory like well before the apocalypse ever happened. Amy's memory was as the apocalypse was beginning. But we established things here, right? That Phil was once a rookie cop, and he wasn't like always so gung ho and whatnot. And Amy was a kendo student. That's which scans. I mean, in the game art, she always has like a samurai sword and whatnot. So, and I got the sensei thing as well from, I think there was a fan made like origin mission for Amy. It's kind of what gave me the idea. Anywho, yeah. So one of the next few projects that I definitely need to work on is repainting the Zombicide models. I mentioned this before. I just need to finish some of the Zombicide survivors from the core second edition box, and then all 40 walkers. So that's more than a few models. They're already painted technically, but I want to sort of repaint them so that they look better, because these were some of the first models that I ever painted really when I started painting again, like a few years ago now. So anywho, yeah, I guess this is a sneak peek, and just hopefully I might get some feedback from this, is what I'm hoping. Maybe one of you might let me know what you thought about these the writing, because when you make stuff, you want to know what other people think so that you can grow and get better and all that jazz. So anywho, links are in the about section if you want to see some of my other stuff, and I'm gonna see y'all when I see you. Take it easy, take care of each other.